His mom had already left for her morning shift at the diner. But she'd left him a note too. Her handwriting was shaky, but her words were clear. Jamie, I don't know how this all happened, but I'm so proud of you. You're my miracle. Love, Mom. Jamie packed his new backpack, zipped up his coat, and stepped out into the snow with something he hadn't felt in a long time, warmth that wasn't just in his clothes, but in his heart. At school, kids noticed the change right away. Nice jacket, one classmate said. Did you win the lottery or something? Jamie shrugged, smiling. He didn't know how to explain that it wasn't luck. It was kindness, passed from one heart to another and then multiplied into something bigger. Later that week, Eleanor visited the school. She didn't come in with cameras or reporters. She wore a simple coat and boots, her gray hair tucked under a soft hat. She met with the principal first and then asked to see Jamie. He was in the library when they found him, reading a book about astronomy. When he looked up and saw her, he grinned. I knew you'd come back. I promised, didn't I? She said, taking the seat beside him. She asked what he was reading. He told her about the stars. How some of them looked small but were actually bigger than anything else in the galaxy. She nodded thoughtfully. Kindness is like that too. Quiet, small, but brighter than we know. He asked why she had tested people by pretending to be homeless. Why she would put herself through the cold, the pain, the silence. She looked out the library window for a long time before answering. Because people forget. They stop seeing. They get used to ignoring those who sit low. I needed to remember what it felt like. And I needed to see who still looked. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. She turned back to him. You looked, Jamie. And not only that, you saw. She told him then that she wanted to start something new. A foundation. One that helped families like his. But not in a flashy way. Quiet help. Private grants. Scholarships. Jobs. Rent relief. Warm clothes and hot meals left at doorsteps with no names attached, and she wanted to name it after someone. He stared at her, wide-eyed. Who? She smiled. The boy with the blue coat. At first, he shook his head. I didn't do anything big. Yes, she said gently. You did something good. And that's bigger than you think. The foundation launched just 2 months later. No fanfare. Just action. Jamie and his mom started volunteering behind the scenes, delivering boxes, writing notes, folding clothes. They never told the people they helped who they were. They just left kindness on porches like little gifts from the wind. Jamie's life began to change in quiet ways. His grades improved. His school offered him a mentor. On weekends, he visited Eleanor's house and sat in her study while she told him stories about her life, about business, mistakes, second chances, and how the world needed more soft hearts with strong hands. One day, she gave him a journal. Write down everything, she said. One day, you'll look back and see how far you came. He wrote every night. About the first snow, about the girl in his class who asked to sit with him at lunch, about the time he helped an older neighbor carry groceries, just because. Every time he helped someone. He drew a little star in the corner of the page. One evening in spring, Eleanor invited Jamie and his mother over for dinner. They sat around a long table with candles, soft music playing, and bowls of warm pasta that made the whole house smell like comfort. After dessert, Eleanor stood and cleared her throat. There's something I need to say, she began. Her voice trembled slightly. She looked at Jamie. You've reminded me that the greatest wealth isn't in money but in meaning. And I've decided that when my time here is done, everything I own, this home, the foundation, the estate, it will all go to you. Jamie's eyes widened. His mother gasped, You're the future, Jamie, Eleanor continued. Not because of what you own, but because of what you give. Tears filled his mother's eyes. She tried to protest, to tell Eleanor they couldn't accept something so big, but Eleanor held up a hand. It's not about charity. It's about legacy. And Jamie is the legacy I want to leave behind. No one spoke for a moment. Then Jamie got up, walked around the table, and hugged Eleanor tightly. Thank you, he whispered, for seeing me. That summer, the first community center opened under the Blue Coat Foundation. It had books, computers, art supplies, A coat room filled with warm jackets, all sizes, all free. And right above the front door, painted in gold script, were 5 simple words because kindness should never wait. Years passed. Jamie grew. The coat that once warmed a stranger now hung in a glass case in the community center lobby. Faded, frayed at the edges, but never forgotten. He never stopped writing in his journal. Even when he became a man. Even when he graduated with honors. Even when people called him sir and shook his hand like he was important, because he never forgot that the most important moment of his life wasn't when the world noticed him, it was when he noticed someone else. And everything changed. If you were moved by this story of kindness, compassion, and unexpected second chances, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional storytelling that warms the heart. Sometimes it's the quietest acts that echo the loudest. The snow was falling hard and the wind bit through every layer of clothing. Most people hurried by without looking up. But when a 12-year-old boy stopped, took off his only warm jacket and wrapped it around a homeless woman sitting on the sidewalk, he had no idea who she really was. Or what she'd do next. His name was Jamie. He had messy hair, old sneakers, and a backpack that was way too big for his shoulders. He didn't have much, but he had enough to walk to school, grab a sandwich from the lunch line, and come home to a small apartment with a flickering heater and a mom who worked double shifts to keep the lights on. It was the first snow of December. The air was heavy with cold. Jamie was walking home from school, hands deep in his pockets, scarf wrapped up to his nose. He hated the snow. Not because it was wet or slippery, but because it reminded him of everything they didn't have. Warm coats, a real heater, enough food in the fridge, Christmas decorations they couldn't afford. He was about to turn the corner near the bakery when he saw her. An older woman, maybe in her 60s, sitting on a cardboard mat under the awning. Her hands were bare, fingers red and raw. Her coat was thin, torn at the sleeves. And she wasn't asking for anything. She just sat there, quietly, like she'd accepted being invisible. Jamie slowed down. People passed by without stopping. Some glanced, most didn't, but Jamie couldn't keep walking. He stepped closer, heart pounding for some reason he didn't understand. "Ma'am," he said gently. She looked up, startled. Her eyes were gray like the winter sky. But there was something in them, tired, yes, but deep. "Alive. Do you need help?" he asked. She shook her head. "I'm all right, sweet boy. Just cold." Jamie hesitated, then pulled off his coat. It was blue, a little big for him, worn at the cuffs, but warm. He stepped forward and held it out. "Here, you can have mine." Her eyes widened. "Oh no, sweetheart. I couldn't." "It's okay," Jamie said, trying to smile. "I can warm up at home." He helped her slip it on. It hung loose on her frame. She looked down at the coat, then back at him. "Why would you do this?" she whispered. "Because you looked cold," he replied. "And nobody should be cold like this." She stared at him for a long time. Then, softly, she said, "Thank you." "What's your name?" "Jamie." She gave him a tiny smile. "Mine's Eleanor." Jamie nodded. "Nice to meet you." He turned to go, arms hugging himself tightly now, the cold biting through his sweater. But he didn't care. Something about helping her made him feel warmer than before. He didn't know that someone had seen everything. A man sitting in a parked car across the street, hidden behind the tinted glass, camera in hand, watching the entire exchange. He didn't know that Eleanor wasn't who she seemed to be, and he definitely didn't know that within 48 hours his entire life would change. That night, Jamie got home shivering. His mom, tired and pale from her shift at the diner, scolded him at first. "Jamie, where's your coat?" "I gave it to someone," he mumbled. "She needed it more." His mom sighed, wiping her eyes. "You're too soft," she whispered. But she hugged him tighter than usual that night. The next day, Jamie walked to school without a jacket. The cold burned his skin. But he didn't complain. In the afternoon, the school counselor called him into her office. "There's someone here to see you," she said. Jamie was confused. He stepped into the hallway and there stood Eleanor, except now she didn't look the same. Her face was clean, her hair brushed. She wore a long, dark coat, new gloves, her posture straight. and beside her stood the man from the car wearing a suit and holding a phone. Jamie blinked. Ms. Eleanor? She smiled gently. Hello, Jamie. He looked at her, then at the man beside her. What's going on? The man stepped forward. Jamie, my name is Mr. Whitaker. I'm Eleanor's assistant. She's not just any woman. She's one of the largest anonymous donors in the city. Jamie's jaw dropped. I don't understand, he stammered. Eleanor stepped closer. I was testing something, she said softly. I wanted to know how people treat others when no one's watching. When there are no cameras, no rewards, just a choice to care or not. Jamie just stared, stunned. You passed, she whispered, eyes glistening. You didn't just give me your coat. You gave me something even harder to find, kindness without condition. Mr. Whitaker cleared his throat. She'd like to show you something. If it's all right with your mom. Jamie nodded slowly. He didn't know where they were taking him, or what would happen next, but something in his heart told him this was just the beginning. Jamie had never ridden in a car so quiet. The seats were soft, the air warm, and everything smelled like leather and vanilla. Eleanor sat beside him in the back seat, hands folded neatly over her lap. Her face was calm, but there was something behind her eyes, something thoughtful, like she was still deciding how much to say. Mr. Whitaker drove, silent except for the occasional glance through the rearview mirror. Jamie clutched his backpack in his lap, unsure what to do or say. This wasn't the same woman he'd seen shivering under the bakery awning. But at the same time it was. They pulled up to a tall gate. It opened slowly, revealing a long stone driveway lined with trees dusted in snow. At the end sat a large white house. No, not a house. A mansion. It looked like something out of a movie. Jamie's mouth fell open a little as they drove closer. Pillars at the front. Warm yellow light glowing from inside. A fountain frozen mid-splash in the middle of the circular drive. Eleanor looked at him and smiled. I know. It's a lot. He nodded slowly. You live here? Most of the time, she said. Sometimes I stay in the city. Other times, I go where I'm needed. The car stopped and the door opened. Jamie stepped out carefully, like he might break something just by standing there. A woman in a navy coat greeted them at the entrance. Welcome, ma'am. And this must be Mr. Jamie. Jamie blinked. Mr. Jamie? No one had ever called him that before. Inside, the house was warm and quiet. Everything was beautiful: wooden floors, glass chandeliers, paintings in gold frames. But nothing felt cold or stiff. There were blankets on the couches, a fireplace glowing in the living room. The scent of cookies drifted in from the kitchen. Eleanor led Jamie to a small sitting room and gestured for him to sit. I want to tell you something, she said as she sat across from him. A long time ago, I was a child like you. Grew up with very little. My mom worked 3 jobs. I knew what it felt like to wear the same shoes for 3 years. I knew what it meant to go to bed hungry. Jamie listened quietly, eyes wide. One winter, she continued, a stranger gave my mother a coat. She wore it every day until it fell apart. That act changed something in me. I promised that if I ever had more than I needed, I'd give it back to someone else. She paused, looking at him. You didn't know who I was, Jamie? But you gave me your only coat anyway. He looked down at his hands. You looked cold. She smiled softly. And that's what makes you special. Mr. Whitaker entered then, holding a large folder. He handed it to Eleanor, who opened it and slid a single sheet of paper across the table to Jamie. He read the first line and froze. It was a scholarship. Not for high school. Not for college, but for everything: private school tuition, meals, clothes, summer programs, healthcare, books. Every expense covered. For me, he whispered. For you, she said gently. You've got heart, Jamie. You saw someone who needed help and you didn't hesitate. I think the world needs more people like that. I want to make sure you get every chance to become whatever you want. Jamie's voice cracked. But why me? Eleanor leaned in slightly. Because you didn't wait to be noticed to be kind. That matters. His eyes burned. He blinked fast, trying not to cry. She wasn't finished. There's more, she said, motioning toward the hallway. He followed her through the house and into another room. one with big windows and a table covered in boxes, clothes, books, and toys. All of this, she said, is for your family. Groceries, coats, school supplies for your sister, rent paid in full for the next year. Jamie covered his mouth with his hand. He thought about his mom, her tired eyes, how she always said, "Don't worry, we'll get through it." And now someone else was helping them through it. "She's going to cry," Jamie whispered. "I know," Eleanor said. Let her later, after warm cookies and milk, Mr. Whitaker drove Jamie home. Eleanor stayed behind, but not before kneeling down to look him in the eye. "I'll see you again," she said. "This isn't a goodbye." Jamie nodded, speechless. When he got home and told his mom everything, she didn't believe him at first. But when Mr. Whitaker came to the door with the paperwork, the receipts, the gifts, she just sank to the floor in tears. Jamie hugged her tightly. They both cried, but for the first time in a long while, those tears weren't from struggle, they were from hope. The next morning felt like waking up inside someone else's life. Jamie opened his eyes and saw a brand new coat hanging on the door. His backpack wasn't ripped anymore, it was replaced by a sturdy one with smooth zippers and his name stitched into the lining. On the kitchen table were groceries. Real ones. Not just canned soup and rice, but fruit, cereal, fresh milk, and even a box of cinnamon rolls with a sticky note that said, "Enjoy these. You deserve it."